I'm so shy it's hard to hear me. Good evening. I'm honored to have been invited to this debate asking, does God exist? I'd like to thank the student groups Metro State Atheist and the Auraria Master Plan Ministries of Denver for their hard work for sponsoring this event. I'd like to thank Dr. Robert Metcalf for agreeing to be our moderator. I'd also like to thank John, Pastor Byrne, for his gentlemanly and fair approach. Since I'm meeting, I call him a friend. I was almost late for this debate. Can you believe that? I worked on it for 4 weeks and I was almost late. Driving here, a sign in front of a funeral parlor hit me with a bullseye. It said, haven't you put off making arrangements long enough? That was me. I rushed in, the funeral director and I went to work. Eventually he started showing me a book of tombstones. The first one said, John Smith, gone to heaven, gone to his heavenly home. The second one said, John Smith, up there in the arms of the angels. And I said, whoa, I'm sorry, but none of these religious tombstones will do. I'm an atheist. And he said, that's all right. We have atheist tombstones. I said, really? He said, sure. He flipped the book over to the back with a picture, and it said, the tombstone inscription read, here lies John Smith, all dressed up, no place to go. I'm going to limit my comments to the God of Abraham as he appears either, key sentence coming up, as a discrete entity or in the minds of humans. I will present 4 arguments: the existence of evil, the battle between religion and science, the effects of the accumulation and distribution of information related to the existence of God, and the absence of God's footprints. The first argument is the existence of evil. It's believed to have originated from Lucretius, a Greek philosopher. If God is all-knowing, all-seeing, all-powerful, and has created us in His own image and loves us, how can evil acts take place? How do we explain the Holocaust that John mentioned? How can we explain 9/11? How can we explain Susan Shepherd drowning her 2 children and then blaming it on a fictitious African American? I use this ancient debate that has been debated so often because it's so personal. I call it the bloody knees syndrome. Someone you love is in mortal danger. You pray to God so long and so hard that your knees bleed, and they die. How can that be? If God loves you, how could He let your loved one die? Well, a tsunami is the result of a tectonic plate shift. 250,000 people died from something as simple as that. Cancer is a deadly disease. Murder is an evil act by a person. A wild animal attacking a loved one is a natural act for the predator. God did not let your loved one die. According to the dichotomy of evil, God does not exist. One of my favorite pictures is called Discovery. It's a Norman Rockwell poster of a little boy in his pajamas in front of a bedroom dresser. He's holding a Santa Claus costume in his hand. I'm sure everyone's seen it. His mouth is open. The little boy realizes the truth. Santa Claus doesn't exist. The same thing happens to some of the people with bloody knees, and they realize there is no God. The second argument against the existence of God are the battles between religion and science, or between faith and reason. Here are 2 examples of dozens, hundreds. Example A is that of Pope Urban VIII versus Galileo. The Pope felt that, key sentence coming up, divinely inspired scriptures clearly showed that the earth was the center of the universe and that the sun rotated around the earth. God said by the scriptures, God said by the scriptures that the sun did rotate around the earth. Galileo, however, correctly supported the heliocentric theory that the earth rotated around the sun. Example B is Charles Darwin's Origin of the Species. Origin contradicted not only belief in Genesis and divinely inspired dogma, but it gave man free will. And it moved him from divinely inspired creature to just one of the many animals. And we accept that. We humans are just one of the many animals. These two cases are examples of scientific inquiry that counter religious dogma based on belief in God. Consider the Mormon belief that Jesus visited America in 34 AD. Consider Muhammad's written belief that the sun always sets at exactly the same spot on the horizon, on the carpet of the horizon. When a theist says a statement is true because it is divinely inspired, and the statement is shown to be false, then God's existence, along with the basis of the Holy Writing, is called into question. It brings up the probability that the writer made up not only God's contribution, but also his existence. The third argument against God is what we're doing right now. The argument is that belief in God cannot stand up to critical evaluation. That's why books are burned. That's why people are prohibited from watching certain movies. That's why people are prohibited from coming to debates just like this. The accumulation and distribution of information will lead to more people believing that God does not exist. If you're a theist parent who fears that your children will lose their belief in God by coming to this university, you have damn good reason to fear. Studies have shown there is a direct correlation between your level of public education and your ability to retain belief in God. One of those studies, by Larson and Witham, surveyed members of the National Academies of Science. Their disbelief in God grew from 52% in 1914 to 72% in 1998. Yes, I know that some of our best scientists are religious. That's not the point. 3/4 of them consider themselves not religious. In 1987, James, the amazing Randy, attended a faith healing ministries show, the Peter Popoff Ministries. It's a $4 million per year faith organization where God healed the sick, and took a drink of water. Randy's assistants carried frequency scanning equipment which intercepted a transmitter operated by Popoff's wife. Popoff had a tiny receiver in his ear. In a very derogatory manner, she provided information to him about the sick people in the audience who filled out prayer cards. Randy also discovered that Popoff paid healthy shills to rise from their wheelchairs when they had been healed. Popoff Ministries went bankrupt shortly after the Randy exposure. Mohammed, help me pronounce this, Ahmadinejad, the president of Iran, appeared before the United Nations. When he returned home, he told his followers that during his speech, the members of the United Nations were held in rapt, unblinking silence as he spoke, and that he was surrounded by a blue light that was emanating from his body. This man leads a country in the name of Allah, and they're in process of manufacturing nuclear bombs. In 1994, Baruch Goldstein, a Jewish settler, mowed down 20 Muslims and wounded 150 more while they were kneeling at prayer. Can you believe that? His murderous act was celebrated and his grave was revered by radical Jewish settlers who are eager for a holy war that their Torah has assured them that God will make them victorious. For decades, there have been accurate reports of pedophile priests that the Catholic Church has denied and covered up. Why did I give you these examples? If God existed, how could he have allowed those things to happen? Not just happen in his name. How could that have happened? The accumulation and distribution of information about the above cases decreases the chances of people believing in God. In addition, the freedom to do scientific, unbiased research and publish the results